Hello students, from today onwards we are starting the polity session, and in polity we will deal about historical background. So what is this historical background? It is about how British East India Company came to India and established their rule, and what are the acts enacted or passed by the British Parliament starting from the Regulating Act of 1773 to Indian Independence Act of 1947. So each and every act and the features will be discussed in this session. So prior to that, we should have a primary information about what is East India Company. East India Company, also known as British East India Company or John Company, it received a royal charter. Here charter means license or permission. From whom? From Queen Elizabeth on 31st December 1600 to trade with India. What is meant by trade? Trade means action of buying and selling of the goods and services. So East India Company has received the permission from Queen Elizabeth on 31st December 1600 to trade with India. And which sort of the trade it is? It's a monopoly trade. So what is this monopoly trade? Only the East India Company was given permission to trade with India, and no other companies in England was given permission to trade with India. So only the Queen has given the permission only to the East India Company and rejected permission to all the other companies to trade with India. So the supply of trade with India is exclusively given to the East India Company. And for how many years? The trade monopoly given to the East India Company by Queen. So the trade monopoly is given for starting 15 years. The company structure, now we will deal about the company structure. The company structure consisting of a head, that is governor, and he was assisted by 24 court of directors. They are responsible for the affairs of the company. And in which commodities does the East India Company traded with? Particularly, it has traded in basic commodities like cotton, silk, indigo, dye, salt, tea and opium. And by trading in these commodities, it earned huge profits. India's GDP at that time is 24% of the world's GDP. So East India Company is a company which is trading with the world's richest country. So it earned huge profits by trading the commodities to the other countries and also to the mother country, England. So it raised up to half of the world's trade, and nearly 50% of the world's trade is controlled by the East India Company. Till 1600 to 1765, the East India Company has purely trading functions. It doesn't have any other functions. Even though it is involved in some of the other petty issues of the Indian rulers, its main motto is trading. But 1765 say, like after the Battle of Buxar, the situation has changed tremendously. And from 1765, it started acquiring territories and it started directly ruling India. So what happened after the Battle of Buxar? So what is the result of this Battle of Buxar? How the Battle of Buxar changed the fate of the East India Company can be seen in the following or the upcoming slides. So Battle of Buxar. The battle happened between English forces on one side and combined forces of Shah Alam II, the Mughal emperor at the time, Mir Qasim, the ruler of Bengal, and Shuja-ud-Dawla, the ruler of Awadh region. So why this battle happened? This battle happened because misuse of Dastak and Farman by the East India Company, and also the trade colonialist desire of the English East India Company. Trade colonialist desire bole to increasing the trade by exempting the taxes. So what are these Dastak and Farman? Farman means during 1717, Farrukhsiyar issued a farman to the East India Company. So what does that say? It says that East India Company has a right to reside and trade in the Mughal empire by paying some amount to the king. This amount should be paid by the East India Company to continue trade in the territory of the Mughal emperor. And what does the Dastak mean? Dastak was a trade permit sanctioned to the East India Company by the Mughal king. If East India Company people produces this Dastak, it can skip paying customs duty. So, but in practice what happened, some private traders of the company generally utilize this free trade by producing this Dastak. Due to this, huge amount of the wealth was drained from the Bengal, and this fumed the Bengal ruler, and it ousted for the Battle of Buxar. So these are the reasons why the Battle of Buxar has happened. Misuse of the Dastak, that is the free trade permit document, was misused by the East India Company private people, and the misuse of the Farman, and also the colonialist desire of the English East India Company has led to this Battle of Buxar. So when this battle was happened on October 22nd or 23rd, 1764. Result was British East India Company led by Major Hector Munro won the battle, and the combined forces of the Mughal Emperor Mir Qasim and Shuja-ud-Dawla got defeated. So what they have got after this Battle of Buxar? The Mughal Emperor Shah Alam granted Diwani Rights to the East India Company over 3 regions: Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. What are these Diwani Rights? Diwani Rights means rights to collect revenue and to undergo civil justice. Means collection of the revenue will be vested in the hands of the East India Company, and to deliver justice also the East India Company should look after, or East India Company should deliver justice, civil justice to the people. Then, like, this is the rule of British generally is divided into 2 parts. One is company rule, that is from 1773 to 1858, and the other is Crown's rule, that is from 1858 to 1947. So now we will discuss about the company rule 1773 to 1858. The first act passed by the British Parliament is known as Regulating Act of 1773. So what is the need of passing this act, and why this act is passed by the British Parliament? Because the first thing is, it's a background of why this regulating act is passed. So first reason is territorial expansion of East India Company. East India Company forgot it as a trading company and started acquiring territories by waging wars in India, and the profits obtained by trading were diverted to these wars. So its financial condition got deteriorated, and this is one of the reason for the establishment of the Regulating Act. Second point is, there is a huge corruption among the servants of the East India Company, and inappropriate reporting of accounts has been done by these servants to the company officials, leading to the misuse of the funds for their personal purpose. So they got huge profits, and they utilized some of the revenues which was collected as they got from the Diwani Rights, and a huge sort of corruption has happened, and it also led for the deterioration of the financial conditions of the East India Company. And the third point is the lack of 2 authorities. First one is lack of judicial authority. Why? To deliver justice. And the lack of central authority. Why? To check the corruption among the servants of the East India Company. So this lack of proper judicial and proper central authority has led to the establishment or enactment of the Regulating Act 1773. So these 2 reasons, the primary territorial expansion and the corruption among the civil servants of the East India Company, had deteriorated the financial conditions of the East India Company. This is also one of the reasons why the East India Company was regulated by the British Parliament. And the next thing is the company defeats in the battle. Company became like a territorial power. It wanted to acquire more and more territories, so it started war fronts with the different kings. So easily whatever the revenue which they got from the profits of the trading, and also the revenue which obtained from the Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, were diverted towards these battles, And the Anglo-Mysore War, for example, in the Anglo-Mysore War, they got defeated in the hands of the Hyder Ali. So whatever the money invested on this war was lost out. So this also deteriorated their financial conditions. Terrible famine in Bengal also, due to this famine, no farm produce was there and the farmers was not able to pay revenue. So there is a loss of revenue and deterioration of the financial conditions. So all this led to the East India Company to incur losses or to deteriorate the financial condition. To fill the losses, company had made debt of 1 million pounds. So this 1 million pounds debt was made to cover these losses. So then the company was unable to pay this 1 million pounds. So it went to the Parliament of Britain and asked for the help to save the East India Company. And then Parliament has said that we will pay 1 million pounds, but we will make some regulations, rules and regulations on you, and you should follow that. Then East India Company has agreed on it. So these are the factors or the circumstances that British East India Company, on the British East India Company to frame Regulating Act of 1773. The Regulating Act of 1773. Why this act is important, or what is the significance of this act? The first point is, it was a first step taken by the British government to control and regulate the affairs of the East India Company in India. The second point is, for the first time, British government recognized the political and administrative functions of the East India Company. Previously, East India Company is considered as only a trading body. Now, British Parliament recognized its political and administrative functions also. And the third important point is, British government laid the foundations of central administration in India. So, centralization is started through this act. Then you will get a doubt, what is this centralization? Centralization means the concentration of power under a single authority. So, this centralization had done through this act. Before entering into the features of this act, we need to know what happened before the Act of 1773. So, before the Act of 1773, there are three centers of power in East India Company ruled India. One center is at Bengal, the other center is Bombay, and the last center is Madras. So, each province or center has its own governor who is appointed by the East India Company. So, what are the functions of the governor is a question here. Governor has both legislative and executive functions over those areas. So Bengal governor को Bengal की legislative and executive functions होते हैं, and so it is considered as a decentralized form of government. So after the passing of Regulating Act of 1773 by the British Parliament, the executive powers of Bombay and Madras governors were removed and given to the Bengal governor, and the Bengal governor is renamed as Governor General of Bengal. So this is the first feature of this act. The act designated the Governor of Bengal as the Governor General of Bengal and created an executive council of 4 members to assist him. This council is also known as Calcutta Council or Governor General in Council. So these 4 members will assist these Governor General of Bengal in executing the functions. And the first such Governor General was Lord Warren Hastings. So Lord Warren Hastings became the first Governor General of Bengal. The second feature of this act is, Governor of Bengal was made as Governor General of Bengal, as you know, but governors of Bombay and Madras presidencies were made subordinates to him. So whatever the functions which was given by Governor General of Bengal, these subordinates, bole to Governor General of Bombay and Madras should do these functions which was delegated to them by the Governor General of Bengal. And the third point is, this act also established Supreme Court at Calcutta फोर्ट विलियम्स के प्लेस में कलकत्ता में सुप्रीम कोर्ट को एस्टैब्लिश कर दिया था इन 1774. So the Supreme Court comprising of one Chief Justice of India and 3 other judges. The first Chief Justice of India is Eliza Imphe. Then we will go to the fourth important point. Fourth point is, what is the main significance of this act? To control and regulate the affairs of East India Company. So the real objective was to control and manage corrupt East India Company. So the act prohibited servants of the East India Company from engaging in any private trade or accepting bribes or gifts from the native rulers. And the total audited report of the trade should be submitted by the Court of Directors to the British Parliament. So each and every part of the trade should be accounted and audited, and the report should be laid down by the Court of Directors to British Parliament. Then the fifth point is, the act told that the governing body of the company, बोले तो Court of Directors, should report all its affairs, बोले तो revenue affairs, revenue which they collects from India, civil affairs, military affairs, to the British government. So this act has said that the governing body of the company, that is Court of Directors, to report all its affairs, revenue, civil and military, to the British government. So this is about the Regulating Act of 1773. Once we will see the summary or the crux of the Regulating Act. Regulating Act was passed by the British Parliament for controlling and regulating the affairs of East India Company, as they enjoyed unlimited political and administrative functions. So there is a dire need for central administration in India. So the Governor General of the Bengal कर दिया था, and he was assisted with the 4 executive councils, and 2 other governors, the governors of Madras and Bombay, were made subordinates to him. Lord Warren Hastings became the first Governor General of Bengal, and there is a need for Supreme Court, so they have established the Supreme Court at Calcutta. And to control the East India Company, they have said that no private trades and the bribe should be accepted from the natives, and the Court of Directors should report all affairs to the British government. So this is the summary of the Regulating Act of 1773. And the question arises, did the Regulating Act actually help the British Parliament to control and regulate the affairs of East India Company? Then the answer will be no. There was so many loopholes in this Regulating Act of 1773. So East India Company's Court of Directors was only corrupt. So how they will account all the information to the British Parliament? Point number 1. So in 1781, again British government called Court of Directors to inquire about this and tried to rectify the defects of the Regulating Act. However, the Court of Directors have bribed the British government. They have given some money to the British government and made an act of settlement requesting the government to stay silent for few years. So by this we can conclude that the Regulating Act of 1773 is a huge failure. Now we will deal about the Act of Settlement 1781. Earlier to this act, Supreme Court was established in Fort Williams, Calcutta in 1774 by Regulating Act of 1773. So a question should be arised in your minds, what are the powers given to the Supreme Court? There are many powers. Out of them, the first power is it has jurisdiction over Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. So what is meant by jurisdiction? Jurisdiction means official power to make legal decisions and pass judgments. So the Supreme Court has official power to make legal decisions on these areas and pass judgments related to these areas. So it also includes, it has the powers over Governor General and his council, and also all the servants of the company comes under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. And the second power of the Supreme Court is each and every revenue matter which arises in the collection of the revenue or which arise during the collection of the revenue should come under the Supreme Court. The third power of the Supreme Court is, under Supreme Court, some provincial courts were established in the provinces like Bombay, and it has appellate authority. What is meant by appellate authority? If the judgments by the provincial courts were not satisfactory, they can approach to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has appellate authority from the provincial courts also. So after passing this act, there were so many powers which was taken away from the Supreme Court. So we will deal about the features of act right now. So we are entering into the Act of 1781 features. The first feature is it exempted the Governor General and his council from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court for the acts done by them in their official capacity. That means Supreme Court has no role over Governor General and his council. Whatever the acts done by their official capacity, means when they were executing their functions, Supreme Court has no role over them. So only official capacity key acts was excluded. Whether they have done any acts under personal capacity, then they will be punished under the Supreme Court. So only official capacity acts were was excluded, and whether when they does the acts under the personal capacity, then they will be punished. And similarly, the servants of the company was also exempted from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court for whatever the actions they done under their official capacity. And the second feature of this act is it excluded the revenue matters and the matters arising in the collection of revenue from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court has no role over the right over revenue and the collection of the revenue matters after passing this act. And the third feature of this act is it provided the Supreme Court should have the jurisdiction over all the inhabitants of the Calcutta. So each and every person who is inhabiting the Calcutta have the Supreme Court has the power to pass judgments and to make legal decisions. So, and the other point in this is it also required the court to administer the personal law of the defendants. बोले तो the Hindu will be trialed based upon the Hindu law only, and the Muslim will be trialed on their Mohammedan law. So their religious law, based upon the religious law, the judgments are passed by the Supreme Court. So this is about the third feature of the Supreme Court. The fourth feature of the Supreme Court is the appeals from the provincial courts previous to this act will go to the Supreme Court, as we have discussed earlier. But this act has laid down appeals from the provincial courts could be taken by the Governor General in Council, and it won't go to the Supreme Court. So whatever the appeals the provincial courts does, then Governor General in Council will look after them. And the Governor General Council, the fifth point is Governor General Council is empowered bole to given power to make rules and regulations for the provincial courts and the provincial councils. So by this act, this act restricted the power and authority of the Supreme Court to the highest of its level. This is about the Act of Settlement 1781. Pitt's India Act of 1784. Again, the British government wanted to rectify the defects of the Regulating Act of 1773. So, they passed Pitt's India Act of 1784. Why the name Pitt got to this act? William Pitt was the then Prime Minister of the Britain. So on his name the act is passed. So it is known as Pitt's India Act 1784. So what is the major contribution of this act, or what are the significance of this act? For the first time it introduced a new word called as possessions. What are these possessions? Possessions bole to all the property or occupied area or territories owned by the East India Company. And what is these territories for the first time called as British possessions in India. So whatever the property or the territories which was possessed by the East India Company were taken by the Britain government, and from this act, after passing this act, they were known as British possessions in India. And the second significant feature is the supreme control over the company affairs and administration was taken by the British government. British government had took the control or the supreme control over company affairs and administration in India. So these are the significant features of the main contributions of this act, and then we will enter into the features of this act. The first and the primary feature of this act is it introduced the system of double government. So what is meant by double government? Earlier, as we know, like we have the court of directors to look after both commercial and political functions of the East India Company. Now the court of directors was only meant to see the commercial functions of the company, and the British government had established a new body called as Board of Control, and it will take care of the political functions of the company. So the total functions of the company is divided between these two bodies, Court of Directors and Board of Control. And Court of Directors was headed by the company, and the Board of Control was headed by the British government. So the governance in India is divided between these two bodies, so it is known as system of double government. It also empowered the Board of Control to supervise and direct all operations of the civil and military government or revenues of the British possessions in India. So Board of Control was given power to supervise and regulate or direct all operations related to civil, military and revenue affairs in the British possessions in India. So this is about the Pitt's India Act of 1784, and it also given more and more legislative powers were now vested with the Governor General of the Bengal. Hence there was increased centralization trend. This is about the Pitt's India Act 1784. Then we will move on with the Act of 1786. Now we will study the Act of 1786. In 1786, East India Company want to appoint Lord Cornwallis as the Governor General of Bengal. But he placed two demands before East India Company to accept the post of Governor General of Bengal. So the first demand is he should be given power to override the decision of his council or Governor General's council in special cases. So what is this overriding power? When the Governor General in council is giving any decision, then the Governor General can reject that decision and can implement his own decision. This is known as overriding powers. And the second demand is he also wanted Commander-in-Chief to be himself. So East India Company has accepted his two demands. So according to his demands, the Act of 1786 was enacted, and both demands was considered and incorporated in the Act. Now we will learn about Charter Act of 1793. The first feature of this Act is the overriding power which was given to the Governor General in against to the Governor General in Council is extended to all future Governor Generals and Governors of different presidencies. The second feature of this Act is it favored more centralization by giving more powers to the Governor General over the governments of Bombay and Madras presidencies. And the third feature of this Act is it extended the trade monopoly of East India Company for another 20 more years. This Act also provided that the Commander-in-Chief was not a member of Governor General in Council, and the functions of him will be delivered by the Governor General. That is, if any person is appointed as the Commander-in-Chief, then only that post will be present in Governor General's Council. Otherwise, Governor General will act as a Commander-in-Chief. The fifth feature of this Act is it said that the members of the Board of Control and their staff will be paid from the Indian revenues only. So the payment to the foreigners from Indian revenue started from this Act. Now we will discuss about Charter Act of 1813. The first feature about this Act is it ended the trade monopoly or abolished the trade monopoly of the East India Company in all commodities except tea trade in India and Chinese trade. So why this Indian trade was thrown open to all British merchants? So all the British merchants can do trade in India from 1813 onwards. So what is the reason behind it? In Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte, the ruler of France, issued Berlin Decree. He was against to the England, so issued Berlin Decree, and according to this decree, if any country does trade with England and directly or indirectly, then that country will be treated as enemy country and he will wage war against that country. So all countries have agreed to stop trading with England. So it hurted the revenues of most of the trading companies in England. So to get more revenues, all the companies were open to trade with India. So by this, they can earn more revenues as taxes from this company. And the second feature of this act is British Crown asserted the sovereignty over the company territories in India. So the company territories will be the property of the British Queen from this act onwards. And the third feature of this act is this act allowed Christian missionaries to come to India and enlighten the people of India. And the fourth feature of this act is it provided the way for spread of Western education among inhabitants of the British territory in India. Their idea is to spread their culture and language in most of the parts of British ruled India. The other feature of this act is it also authorized the local governments to impose taxes on local persons. So the power to collect the revenue from the persons were given to the local government, and if the citizens or the person fail to pay, they can be awarded punishment by the local governments. And the other feature of this act is whatever the rules and regulations made by the major three presidencies of British ruled India, they are Bombay, Madras and Bengal. So whatever the rules and regulations made by these presidencies should be laid before the British Parliament, and when the British Parliament agrees on these rules and regulations only, they can be implemented in these presidencies. And the other feature of this act is East India Company should maintain separate accounts for both commercial transactions which they are earning through trading and territorial revenue which they are collecting in the form of tax. So there should be two separate accounts for the commercial transaction, one account, and for territorial revenue there should be other account. The last point is the company's servant should undergo training compulsorily. So these are the features of the Act of 1813 or Charter Act of 1813. Then we will deal about the Charter Act of 1833. This act was the final step towards centralization in British India. So this is the final step. The first step was started during the Regulating Act of 1773, and this act is the final step towards centralization in India. So what are the features of this Charter Act 1833? The first feature is here the government decided instead of Governor General of Bengal, let us make Governor General of India for the entire territorial area possessed by the British in India. So the act made Governor General of Bengal as Governor General of India and vested all civil and military powers with him. So through this act, the entire territorial area possessed by the British India will be ruled by a common authority, that is Government of India headed by the Governor General of India. And who is the first Governor General of India? Lord William Bentinck became the first Governor General of India. And the second feature about this Charter Act of 1833 is it deprived even the legislative powers of the governors of Bombay and Madras, and their legislative powers were vested in the hands of Governor General of India. The executive powers of the governors of Bombay and Madras were taken away during the Regulating Act of 1773. And during the Charter Act of 1833, even the legislative powers of the governors of Bombay and Madras were taken out, or they were deprived of their powers. So the Governor General was given exclusive legislative powers for the entire British India. So he can make laws which is applicable to all the British territories in India. So exclusive legislative powers were given to the Governor General of India. Third feature of this act is the laws or the rules which was framed before this act or previous to these acts were called as regulations, while laws made under this act and from now onwards they were called as acts. So till 1813 they were called as regulations, and from 1833 onwards the acts or the laws which was passed by the Parliament were called as acts. The fourth feature of this Charter Act of 1833 is East India Company was left as purely administrative body. So it implements what the government says. So primarily it was just a commercial body. So it ended the activities as a commercial body and made as a purely administrative body. And the fifth and the last feature about this Act of 1833, Charter Act of 1833, is it attempted to introduce a system of open competition for selection of civil servants. And it also stated that Indians should not be debarred or debarred from holding any place, office, employment under the company. But this provision of accepting the Indians into the civil services or the higher civil services was not accepted by the Court of Directors. So this feature is not implemented by the Charter Act of 1833. Then it comes the final Charter Act passed by the British Parliament during East India Company rule. So we will study now about the Charter Act of 1853. So what are the features of this act? The Governor General of India cannot see all the legislative and executive functions because he will be overburdened by seeing all these functions. So it separated for the first time the legislative and executive functions of the Governor General's Council. So it also added 6 new members as legislative councillors additionally. So the first feature of this act created a separate Governor General's Legislative Council. It is also called as Indian Central Legislative Council. It acted as mini parliament, following the same procedures and rules as that of British Parliament. And for the first time, local representation was allowed in Indian Central Legislative Council. And for the first time, the legislation is treated as a special function requiring government machinery and special process. The other feature of this act is Indians were open to write the civil services. An open competition system of selection and recruitment of the civil service servants was done earlier. There was no selection and recruitment test, but this act introduced the selection and recruitment test for the first time, and Indians can also write the test and become civil servants. This feature is added in the Charter Act of 1853 by taking into Macaulay Committee report into consideration. So this Macaulay Committee had given a report. It stated that open competition system should be done for the recruitment of the civil servants, and Indian people should be allowed for the civil service examinations. And this committee was appointed in 1854. And the other feature of this Charter Act of 1853 is the act extended the company's rule, but doesn't specify any time period. So it is a clear indication that company's rule could be terminated at any time the parliament liked. And the other feature of this Charter Act of 1853 is 6 new legislative members of the Governor General Council. So out of these 6 members, 4 members were appointed from India, that is from provincial governments of Madras, Bombay, Bengal and Agra. So Indians were allowed to take part in Indian Central Legislative Council. So Indians' entry into the legislative function have started through this act, but the real powers were not given to Indians. So this is about the Charter Act of 1853. We will see the summary of Charter Act of 1853. Charter Act of 1833 gave full powers to Governor General of India, the executive and legislative powers. To make things simple, Charter Act of 1853 first time separated legislative and executive functions and created a separate body called as Indian or Central Legislative Council or mini parliament. Act also allowed local representations to this legislative council. The civil service examination was open to all, including Indians also. The act also allowed East India Company to retain the positions of Indian territories, but for the first time it does not specify any particular time period. So it is an indication that at any time company's rule could be terminated by the British Parliament. So this is about the Charter Act of 1853. Then after this act, the revolt of 1857 or the Sepoy Mutiny happened. So the Sepoy Mutiny have totally changed the scenario in India, and now the Britain government and the Britain crown want to rule India directly and want to make so many changes in the administration of India. So the crown rule started from 1858 to 1947. Now onwards, all the acts were called either as Government of India Acts or Indian Councils Acts. So the first act passed after Sepoy Mutiny or the first War of Indian Independence is Government of India Act 1858, or it is also called as Act for the Good Government of India. Why it is called as the Act of Good Government can be discussed after dealing about the features of this act. The first feature, now onwards India will be governed by Crown, or the Crown's rule will be there in India in the name of His Majesty or Her Majesty. This act abolished the East India Company and transferred the powers of government, territories and revenues to the British Crown. The company rule was ended in 1858. The Crown's rule began now. The designation of the Governor General of India was changed to Viceroy of India, and the Lord Canning became the first Viceroy of India. The Viceroy of India is appointed by the Crown and responsible to the Crown because he is the direct representative of the British Crown in India. And the other feature of this act is this act ended the system of double government in India. The system of double government was started during the Pitt's India Act of 1784. So it abolished the Court of Directors and Board of Control and created a new office called as Secretary of the State. So the Secretary of the State for India is a new body, and the Court of Directors' administrative authority and control was given to this new body, that is Secretary of the State. Functions were administrative authority and control all over India. And the special feature is the Secretary of the State was a member of the British Cabinet and was responsible ultimately to the British Parliament. And this act also established a 15-membered Council of India to assist the Secretary of the State. So a 15-membered body was created, and it assists the Secretary of the State, and it's just an advisory body. It also constituted the Secretary of the State and his council as a body corporate, that is capable of sued and being sued in India and England. What is this phrase of sued and being sued, and what is body corporate? A body corporate means any person or authority which can sue or being sued, means which can be trialed in any court of law for his both actions in India as well as England. So Secretary of the State can be trialed in any court of law for his both actions in India as well as England. In every level of administration, for example, the governors of different presidencies are responsible for the acts done by them to the Viceroys of India, and the Secretary of the State and his council are responsible for their acts to the British Parliament. So, for the first time, accountability and responsibility is vested in Indian administration. That's why this act is known as Act of Good Government. What is Act of Good Government? At every level of administration, बोले तो governors of different presidencies are accountable to the Viceroy of India. The Viceroy of India is accountable to the Crown of England because he is the direct representative of the Crown of England. And the Secretary of the State and his council are responsible to the British Parliament, and Secretary of the State will reside in London, and from London only he will look after, he and his council will look after the affairs of India, but Viceroy of India will reside in India, and through India only he will look after the affairs of India. And that's why the first time accountability and responsibility is vested in Indian administration. That's why this act is known as Act of Good Government. So the summary of the Government of India Act 1858 is, after 1857 revolt or Sepoy mutiny, Government of India Act 1858 was enacted, and it abolishes the East India Company, and the powers of government, territories and revenues were transferred to the British Crown. Governor General of India designation was changed to Viceroy of India. Lord Canning was the first Viceroy of India, and system of double government was ended. So no Court of Directors and Board of Control. Instead of it, a new office was created called as Secretary of the State, and he will be assisted by the 15-membered council. This council is just an advisory council, and administrative affairs of Court of Directors will be vested in the hands of the Secretary of the State. Secretary of the State is a body which look after the complete authority and control over Indian administration. The Government of India Act 1858 was intended to bring good government in India, and it want to alter the system which is already existing in India. So it want to improvise the administrative efficiency, so it brought out the accountability in each and every level of administration. That's why it is known as the Act of Good Government. After the Great Revolt of 1857, the British government also thought that, or felt the necessity of seeking the cooperations of the Indians in the administration in India. So, in pursuance of this policy of association of the Indians into the administration, the British Parliament has enacted, the British Parliament has passed 3 acts. They were the Act of 1861, 1892 and 1909. They were called as Indian Councils Acts. So, the Indian Councils Act of 1861 is an important landmark in the constitutional and political history of India. Why? When we see the features of the Act of 1861 or the Indian Councils Act of 1861, we will know about its constitutional and political importance. Features of the Act of 1861 or the Indian Councils Act of 1861. The first feature is it made a beginning of the representative institution by associating India with the lawmaking process. So the representation is also given to the Indians and they were taken into the Legislative Council. So according to this act, the Viceroy should nominate some Indians as non-official members of his expanded council. So some Indians will be nominated by the Viceroy as non-official members of his expanded council. In 1862, Lord Canning, the then Viceroy of India, nominated 3 Indians to his legislative council. They are the Raja of Benares, the Maharaja of Patiala, and Sir Dinakar Rao. Even there, they were taken into the legislative council, but the actual lawmaking power were not given to them. They were just spectators in Indian Legislative Council. So even they taken the 3 Indians into the Legislative Council, but not actual power were delegated to them. The second feature of this Indian Councils Act of 1861 is it initiated the process of decentralization by restoring the legislative powers to the Bombay and Madras. So the legislative powers were again given to the governors of Bombay and Madras presidencies. So it has reversed the centralizing tendency that started from the Regulating Act of 1773 and it reached its climax under the Charter Act of 1833. So centralized tendency was reversed now and decentralization process started from this Indian Councils Act 1861. And the policy of legislative devolution resulted in the grant of almost complete internal autonomy to the provinces in 1937. So what does it mean? The actual autonomy were given to the provinces to make laws related to those areas. So there will be no interference from the Viceroy or Central Legislative Council in the legislative process of provinces. So provinces were given the complete internal autonomy. It also provided for the establishment of new legislative councils for Bengal area, Northwestern Province and Punjab. So they were established. The new legislative councils for Bengal was established in 1862, for Northwestern Province in 1886 and for Punjab the new legislative council was established in 1897. The other major feature of this act is it empowered the Viceroy to make rules and orders for the more convenient transaction of the business in the council. So for the convenient transaction of the business in Indian Legislative Council or the Central Legislative Council, the Viceroy has the power to make rules and orders. And it also gave the power to the Viceroy to allot portfolios to his council members. That is, it also gave a recognition to the portfolio system introduced by Lord Canning in 1859. So the portfolio system was started by the Lord Canning in 1859. So it given recognition. So actual portfolios were allotted in 1861. So under this, a member of the Viceroy's council was made in charge of one or more departments of the government and was authorized to issue final orders on behalf of the council on matters of his department. So it simply says that a member of the Viceroy Council will be head of one or more departments, and whatever the powers of him is, like he can issue the final orders on behalf of the council on matter of his departments. So the other feature of this act is it empowered the viceroy to issue ordinance. So what is meant by an ordinance? Ordinance is the temporary law where the executive is performing the legislative functions. When legislative body is absent, this ordinance can be passed by the executive, and it is a temporary law. The ordinance power of the viceroy has been adopted in the modern Indian constitution also. So under Article 123, and such powers are now being given to the president. Presently in our constitution, like under Article 123, we have ordinance making power that has been taken from the Indian Councils Act of 1861. So only during emergencies the viceroy can issue ordinance without the concurrence of the legislative council. Without the concurrence bole to permission of the legislative council. And the life of such ordinance was 6 months. So the ordinance will be continued as a law only for the 6 months. This is about the Indian Councils Act 1861. So later on we will deal about all the other acts in the upcoming lectures. So thank you.